People always said Olivia Hart didn't have a heart, ironic, considering her last name. She'd just won another brutal case, left another man in corporate ruins, and still managed to fix her lipstick before walking out of court. But beneath the applause and the champagne congratulations, her soul felt quieter than a graveyard at dawn. It was supposed to be another night alone dinner with her reflection in the window of her luxury apartment until she heard the sound of her. A soft, raspy voice floated through the city rain, threading its way past the noise of traffic and life. It wasn't perfect. In fact, it cracked halfway through a verse. But that imperfection struck Olivia like lightning. She followed the sound around the corner and saw her, a girl in ripped jeans, soaked to the bone, singing like she had nothing left to lose. A battered guitar hung from her shoulder, and her fingers trembled against the strings, yet she sang with a kind of defiance that made the night itself listen. "Hey!" Olivia called out before she could stop herself. The girl looked up. Her eyes green wild, alive, met Olivia's with a mix of surprise and stubborn pride. "If you're here to complain about the noise, I'll move," the girl said flatly. Olivia actually laughed. "Noise? That was the best thing I've heard all day." The girl blinked, clearly not expecting kindness from a woman in heels and a $1,000 coat. "Well, thanks, but I don't take requests." "I wasn't making one." Olivia smiled faintly. "Just listening." They stared at each other for a beat too long, until the sound of thunder snapped the moment. The girl turned away, strumming again, something softer now, something broken. Olivia stood there, unsure why she hadn't walked off already. Maybe it was the way the girl closed her eyes when she sang, as if each lyric was a confession. Or maybe it was the way the world seemed to shrink around her, the rain, the cars, the city all fading until there was only her voice. Her name was Riley. 24, no home, no family, just music and an old van that barely started. She'd come to New York chasing a dream that didn't seem to want her back. Olivia found herself thinking about her all night, about that voice, those eyes, that raw, reckless bravery. By morning, she'd convinced herself it was just curiosity. But by evening, she was back at the same corner. Riley was there again, playing to no one but the rain. Olivia walked up, holding a coffee cup. "You looked cold yesterday," she said, handing it over. Riley hesitated, then took it. "Thanks. You a social worker or something?" "Lawyer," Olivia said, watching the girl's eyebrows lift. "Figures." Riley smirked. "You look like you sue people for a living." "Only the ones who deserve it." For the first time, Riley laughed. It was soft but real, the kind of sound that could thaw the sharpest winter. Over the next few weeks, Olivia found reasons to pass that corner. Sometimes she'd bring coffee. Sometimes a sandwich. Sometimes nothing but an excuse, a meeting nearby, a walk to clear her head. Riley never asked why, but she noticed. One night, as the crowd rushed by and neon lights painted the wet pavement, Riley looked up mid-song and caught Olivia watching her again. "You really like street music that much?" Olivia shrugged. "Maybe I like the performer." Riley froze. A tiny, dangerous silence fell between them, one Olivia immediately regretted breaking. But Riley didn't look angry. She just smiled, small and bittersweet. "That's dangerous talk, lawyer." "So sue me." Riley shook her head, trying to hide her grin, but Olivia saw the spark she'd been afraid to believe in. The first touch happened by accident. Olivia reached out to steady Riley as a drunk man stumbled too close, and their hands brushed. Just that skin against skin, a spark that shouldn't have meant anything. But the air between them changed, thick with the weight of something they both felt and didn't dare name. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She kept hearing Riley's voice in her head, the way she sang about love like it was a war you never truly won, just survived. By the third week, Olivia invited her for dinner. "Not the kind with wine glasses and tablecloths," she promised when Riley hesitated. "Just food. Real food." Riley stared at her. "You sure you want to be seen with a broke busker? People like you don't usually hang around people like me." Olivia looked her straight in the eyes. "Maybe people like me are tired of people like me." Dinner was awkward at first. Olivia's apartment was too clean, too quiet, like a museum for the life she pretended to have. Riley wandered around, touching the piano keys, staring at the city lights from the window. "You live up here?" Riley asked softly. "Feels like another planet." Olivia watched her reflection in the glass, Riley standing there, hair catching the glow of Manhattan, like a fragment of music that had somehow taken human form. Sometimes, Olivia admitted. Other times I just exist. Riley turned, her gaze gentler now. You don't seem happy. Olivia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Happiness isn't in the job description. Riley's voice softened. Then maybe you need a new one. Later that night, when Riley played one of her own songs for Olivia, something fragile and haunting about second chances, Olivia realized she'd stopped listening like a lawyer and started listening like a woman. Every lyric felt like it was written for her, about being trapped in your own success, about longing for something real. When Riley's voice cracked on the final note, Olivia's throat tightened. That was beautiful, she whispered. Riley looked at her. You sound surprised. I am. Olivia smiled faintly. I forgot people could still mean what they say. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Riley reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Olivia's face. Her fingers lingered, trembling slightly. The city outside roared, but inside that quiet apartment, the world felt impossibly still. The next morning, Olivia found herself standing in front of the mirror, brushing her hair like she was preparing for trial. Only this time, her opponent wasn't a courtroom adversary, it was herself. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Riley, that small smile, that quiet courage. The world she had so carefully built, all glass and logic and law, suddenly felt like it could shatter with a single song. Her phone buzzed with a text from her partner at the firm. David. We're meeting the Miller clients at 10. Don't be late, they're worth 8 figures. Olivia stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Olivia. Got it. But she didn't move. Not yet. Her fingers still smelled faintly of guitar strings and rain. That afternoon, she passed by Riley's corner again, pretending it was coincidence. It wasn't. Riley was there, tuning her guitar, a few coins in her open case. But this time there was something different in her eyes, less guarded, maybe a little curious. Didn't think lawyers liked reruns, she teased when she saw Olivia approach. Maybe I like the soundtrack, Olivia replied. Riley grinned. Careful, heart. I might start thinking you're one of the good ones. Olivia tilted her head. And what do you think I am now? Riley strummed a slow, teasing chord. Complicated. Olivia laughed softly. That's fair. Then, without another word, Riley started to play. It was a song Olivia hadn't heard before, softer, almost intimate. A melody that seemed to reach right into her chest and squeeze. By the time the last note faded, Olivia couldn't remember what her life had sounded like before this. Days blurred into weeks. They started having coffee together, cheap street coffee for Riley, overpriced lattes for Olivia. Sometimes they walked through Central Park, sometimes they just sat on the curb watching the world rush by. Riley talked about music, about how it saved her from herself. Olivia talked about nothing, or tried to. She was still learning how to feel without filtering it through logic. One night, after a long silence, Riley finally asked, Why do you keep coming back? Olivia didn't have an answer ready. Because. When I'm here, I don't feel like I'm pretending. Riley's lips parted slightly. Pretending what? That I'm okay. Riley reached out, covering Olivia's hand with her own. Her palm was warm, calloused, real. You don't have to pretend with me. Olivia looked down at their hands. That's the thing, Riley. I've been pretending so long. I don't even know who's underneath anymore. Then maybe it's time to find out. It should have scared her, that closeness. But instead it made her feel alive, like she'd been underwater her whole life and had just taken her first breath. Yet the world around them wasn't ready. A week later, Olivia's firm hosted a charity gala at the Metropolitan. Cameras, champagne, $1 million smiles, the kind of night where appearances mattered more than truth. David, her senior partner, greeted her with a grin. Olivia, you look stunning. Got someone special tonight? Olivia hesitated, her mind flashing to Riley. No, she said quickly. Just work. But that night, as she stood in a sea of silk and arrogance, she couldn't stop thinking about the girls singing under streetlights. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Riley. Riley. You survive your fancy people thing? Olivia smiled despite herself. Olivia. Barely. Everyone's pretending. It's exhausting. Riley. You could sneak out. I'm at the pier. Music and bad tacos. Olivia looked around at the men in tuxedos, the women in diamonds, and for the first time in her life, she didn't care what they thought. 10 minutes later, she was running down 42nd Street in heels, laughing like she hadn't in years. Riley was sitting on the pier railing, guitar in her lap, eating from a paper plate. When she saw Olivia approach, her eyes widened. You actually came, Riley said, half surprised, half delighted. Wouldn't miss it, Olivia replied, breathless. You mentioned tacos. Riley grinned. Careful. You keep showing up like this, people might start talking. Olivia met her gaze. Let them. For a long time they sat there, the city glowing behind them, waves slapping against the dock. Riley hummed softly, her voice barely above the wind. Sing something, Olivia whispered. Riley shook her head. Not tonight. Tonight I just want to listen. To what? Riley leaned closer. To you. The air between them shifted, slow, heavy, electric. Olivia felt her heart stumble, as if caught between two worlds, the one she built and the one she was falling into. Then Riley's hand found hers again, gentle but sure. You can stop running, Olivia. I didn't think I was. Yes, you did, Riley said softly. Your whole life. The words broke something open inside her, something she'd been holding shut for years. And when she finally kissed Riley, it wasn't passion that led her. It was relief. Relief that she didn't have to pretend anymore. The next morning the world looked different. The city still roared, but it didn't drown her anymore. Riley made pancakes in Olivia's kitchen, wearing one of her shirts that hung too loose on her frame. So, she said, flipping one, what happens now? Olivia smiled, still half asleep. Now we eat. Riley chuckled. I mean, after breakfast, genius. Olivia hesitated. I don't know. Do you regret it? Riley asked quietly. Olivia reached out, brushing her thumb along Riley's jaw. Not even a little. But reality has sharp edges. By Monday, whispers started circulating at the firm. Someone had seen Olivia at the pier that night, laughing barefoot, hand in hand with a girl and a guitar. David called her into his office. I don't care what you do in your free time, he said, voice low and businesslike. But clients talk. And they pay for our reputation. You understand. Olivia's throat tightened. Are you saying I can't see her? I'm saying perception matters. We've worked too hard to build this firm. Don't throw it away for whatever this is. Whatever this is. The word stung more than she expected. She walked out without replying, but her pulse wouldn't calm. For the first time, she felt trapped not by her own ambition but by the expectations of everyone else. That night, she didn't go to the pier. She sat in her apartment instead, staring at her reflection, wondering when her life had stopped belonging to her. Riley showed up 2 days later, worry in her eyes. You disappeared, she said. I've been busy. Riley crossed her arms. That's not true. Olivia looked away. People at work found out. It's complicated. So that's it? You're scared they'll judge you. It's not that simple. Yeah, it is. Riley's voice trembled. You care about what they think more than what you feel. That's not fair. Neither is hiding me. The silence that followed was brutal. Olivia finally said, You don't understand what it's like in my world. Riley's laugh was sharp, bitter. You're right. I don't. In my world I fight for scraps. In yours you hide behind glass walls and call it strength. Riley, no, Riley said, eyes glistening. You know what hurts? I thought you were different. I thought you were real. She turned to leave, but Olivia grabbed her wrist. Wait. Please. Riley looked back, and for a moment, Olivia saw all the pain she'd caused reflected in those green eyes. If you want me, Olivia, you can't just show up when it's easy. You have to choose me when it's hard. Then she was gone. Olivia didn't move for hours. The city went quiet outside, but inside her thoughts screamed. She'd spent years fighting for truth in court, yet when it came to her own, she'd run. The next morning she walked into the office, head high. David was there again, talking numbers and clients. David, she said, interrupting him mid-sentence. I'm taking a leave. He blinked. Excuse me. I need time. For once in my life, I need to figure out what matters. Olivia, think about what you're doing. You have a future here. She smiled faintly. Maybe I want a different one. That evening, Olivia found herself back at the pier. The air was colder, the water darker. Riley wasn't there. For a moment, Olivia thought she'd lost her for good. But then, faintly, she heard a melody, a familiar voice singing just beyond the boardwalk. Riley sat alone, guitar on her knee, playing to the empty night. Her song was different now, slower, sadder. Olivia walked toward her, heart pounding. Riley didn't stop playing. You shouldn't be here, she murmured. I know, Olivia said softly. But I'm done hiding. Riley's fingers froze on the strings. What are you saying? I quit my job. That got her attention. You what? Olivia laughed, a shaky, breathless sound. Turns out, winning cases doesn't mean much if you lose yourself in the process. Riley set the guitar down slowly. You really mean that? I've spent my whole life fighting for other people's truths, Olivia whispered, stepping closer. It's time I fought for mine. For a moment, neither moved. Then Riley stood and took a step forward. Their foreheads touched, their breath mingling in the cold night. I'm still mad at you, Riley said quietly. I know. But I never stopped wanting you. I know that too. Then, under the same streetlight where they'd first met, Olivia kissed her again, not out of fear this time, but faith. Faith that love, no matter how late it came, was still worth believing in. 3 months later, the city bloomed again. Spring in New York had a way of making everything seem possible, even second chances. Olivia walked through Washington Square Park, coffee in hand, the air thick with the smell of roasted nuts and lilacs. She wasn't wearing her usual tailored suits anymore, just jeans, sneakers, and a windbreaker that made her look almost ordinary. And for once she didn't mind. After she quit the firm, she disappeared for a while. Drove upstate. Rented a cabin. Wrote letters she never sent to her mother, to David, to Riley. Especially Riley. She tried to start over, but every melody on the radio, every girl strumming a guitar in the subway pulled her back. Back to that night on the pier. Back to the woman who made her feel human again. That afternoon, she wandered into a small cafe near Greenwich Village. A flyer taped to the window caught her eye. Open mic night tonight, featuring local artists and special guests. Something in her chest fluttered. Riley used to talk about open mics, how they were both terrifying and freeing, how every song felt like jumping without knowing if the net was there. Olivia smiled softly, stepped inside, and took a seat in the back. The lights were dim, the room smelled of coffee and old wood. Young performers took turns, some nervous, some wild, all trying to be heard. Then halfway through the lineup, a voice cut through the noise. Low, steady, familiar. Olivia froze. Riley stood under the spotlight, her guitar gleaming softly against the stage lights. She looked different, calmer, stronger, like someone who had walked through a storm and learned to dance in the rain. Her song was new, not one Olivia had heard before. It started gentle, then grew into something fierce, a story of losing yourself to the world and finding your way back through love. The chorus hit like a heartbeat. I was lost in a city of silver and lies, chasing ghosts and expensive ties. But you found me in the rain and I finally knew my name. Olivia's vision blurred. The crowd clapped, cheered, but she couldn't move. Her heart was a riot of sound. When the song ended, Riley bowed slightly, then scanned the crowd almost absent-mindedly until her gaze stopped. Right on Olivia. The smile that spread across Riley's lips wasn't surprise. It was recognition, quiet, knowing, inevitable. After the show, Olivia waited outside. The night was cool, the air alive with laughter and footsteps. When Riley stepped out, guitar slung over her back, she stopped short. I was wondering when you'd show up, Riley said softly. Olivia let out a shaky laugh. Took me long enough, huh? Riley nodded. About 3 months too long. I thought about you every day, Olivia admitted. Every time I tried to move on, I just circled back to you. Riley studied her for a long moment. You look different. I feel different, Olivia said. Lighter. Maybe even honest. Riley tilted her head. You mean you finally stopped hiding? Olivia smiled faintly. Yeah. Turns out the world doesn't end when you tell the truth. Riley crossed her arms. And what's your truth, Olivia Hart? Olivia stepped closer until they were barely a breath apart. That I love you. That I was a coward before. And that I don't want to be one anymore. For a heartbeat, Riley said nothing. Then slowly, she smiled, that same smile that once melted through every wall Olivia had. You know, Riley said, voice trembling just a little, you're still terrible at timing. Olivia laughed. I'm learning. Good, Riley murmured, and before another word could fall, she leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't the desperate kind of kiss they'd shared before. It was slower, softer, the kind that feels like home. And this time Olivia didn't feel like she was falling. She felt like she'd finally landed. They started seeing each other again, cautiously at first. Dinners in little hole-in-the-wall restaurants. Morning walks through Brooklyn. Nights spent talking until dawn. Riley got more gigs, word of mouth spread fast after that open mic performance. A small record label reached out. She didn't sign right away, though. Not until I'm sure it's for the right reasons, she told Olivia. Olivia, meanwhile, started volunteering with a nonprofit that offered free legal aid for artists and small business owners. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. For the first time, her law degree wasn't a weapon, it was a bridge. Sometimes they fought about money, about schedules, about fears that still lingered. But even when they argued, it felt different. Honest. Grounded. Because now, when Olivia looked at Riley, she didn't see chaos. She saw clarity. And Riley, when she looked at Olivia, didn't see power or control. She saw peace. One evening after a long day of work, Olivia came home to find the apartment filled with music. Riley was sitting on the floor, surrounded by scattered lyrics, humming under her breath. What's this? Olivia asked, kicking off her heels. Riley smiled without looking up. Something new. Another heartbreak song? Riley shook her head. Actually, a love song. For once. Olivia chuckled. Those don't sell. Maybe not, Riley said, glancing up. But this one isn't for sale. She handed Olivia a sheet of paper. At the top, scribbled in ink, were the words, Streetlight Heart. Olivia began to read lyrics about two women from different worlds, about finding love under rain and neon, about courage that sounds like laughter in the dark. By the time she reached the last verse, her eyes burned. You wrote this? About us, she whispered. Riley smiled. I wrote it for us. The song became something more than either of them expected. Riley performed it once at a small festival, and a video of the performance went viral not because it was flashy, but because it felt real. 2 weeks later, her name started trending. She signed with the label, finally on her own terms. Olivia was there beside her, hand intertwined, silent but proud. The label wanted to market Riley as a rising queer artist. Riley hesitated at first, but Olivia squeezed her hand. You don't have to hide anymore, she whispered. And so Riley told her story, their story, on live radio. I fell in love with someone who saw me when no one else did, Riley said, her voice steady. And if that makes people uncomfortable, maybe they should ask themselves why. The phone lines lit up. Support poured in. Messages from young girls, from women who'd spent their whole lives pretending. People who said Riley's music made them braver. Olivia watched it all unfold with quiet awe. She'd spent years in rooms where power meant control. Now she understood real power was truth. Months passed. Seasons changed. One summer evening, Olivia came home to find Riley sitting on the balcony, barefoot, guitar beside her, watching the sunset stain the skyline gold. Big day, Riley said, nodding toward her phone. They want me to open for a national tour. Olivia smiled. You deserve it. You'll come with me? Of course. Riley leaned back, resting her head against Olivia's shoulder. You know, I used to think love was supposed to fix you. And now I think it just helps you see who you already were. Olivia wrapped her arms around her. You were always enough, Riley. The world just needed to catch up. When autumn returned, they went back to the pier where it all began. The same streetlight, the same quiet hum of the river. Riley carried her guitar. Olivia carried 2 cups of coffee. Feels smaller now, Riley said softly. Maybe we got bigger, Olivia replied. Riley smiled, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Play something with me. Olivia laughed. You know I can't play. So? Just hum. They sat together on the cold wood, the city glowing behind them, and Riley started to strum. A gentle tune, one that needed no words. Olivia hummed off-key, clumsy, perfect. And for the first time in her life, she didn't care who was watching. As the night deepened, Riley set her guitar aside and looked up at the sky. You ever think about how we almost didn't happen? All the time, Olivia said. And then I realized maybe we were always supposed to. Riley chuckled. That's a very lawyer way to look at fate. Maybe, Olivia said, smiling. But it's true. Every case I won, every wall I built, it all led me here. To this. Riley reached for her hand. To us. To us. They sat there in silence, listening to the river, the faint music from a distant street musician echoing through the night. It felt poetic, a full circle. Later, when Riley's first album released, the dedication page read simply, "For oh, you were the truth I didn't know I was singing." And when Olivia framed it on their apartment wall, Riley teased her. You really are sentimental, huh? Olivia grinned. Don't tell anyone. It might ruin my reputation. Riley kissed her cheek. Your secret's safe with me. Years later, people would talk about Riley Monroe, the street musician who became the voice of a generation. They'd talk about her courage, her art, her honesty. But Riley always said her real story wasn't in the fame. It was in a rainy night, under a streetlight, when a tired lawyer with perfect hair stopped long enough to listen. And somewhere in the space between a song and a heartbeat, two worlds collided, and love, messy and beautiful, found its way in. Because sometimes the most extraordinary thing about love isn't how it begins, it's how it stays. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.